In this corner, we have Virtua Cop 2, the Saturn conversion of one of the most celebrated light gun games to ever grace the arcade. In the other corner, it's Time Crisis, Namco's response that reinvented the formula by adding a foot pedal and dodge mechanic. The result was a hotly contested feud that helped to define the 32-bit console war. But what did the critics say 28 years ago? Was it this back and forth, or was there a clear winner in this Saturn versus PlayStation showdown? To answer those questions, I decided to flip through the pages of Electronic Gaming Monthly, Computer and Video Games, Next Generation, and more classic magazines that reviewed both of these arcade ports. Today we're going to see where the critics landed, and who knows, maybe even settle this light gun debate once and for all in this sharp-shooting new episode of Magazine Matchup.
Tom. 仲間が集まりゃバーチャコップ2
We're gonna kick things off with Electronic Gaming Monthly, who historically has never been that big into light gun games. In fact, you're probably gonna notice an undercurrent against the genre from a lot of the magazines at the time, usually due to the high price point and the limited amount of content. EGM did like Virtua Cop 2 better than the first game, giving it a very healthy average of 8.1 out of 10. No surprises here, Virtua Cop 2, like the first game, is a solid port of an excellent arcade shooter, and yet another reason to buy a light gun for your Saturn. Virtua Cop 2 doesn't offer many improvements over the original, it's pretty much more of the same. But that's okay, both arcade games represent the best in the light gun genre. Now 10 issues later, EGM reviewed Time Crisis. Whereas the scores for Virtua Cop were all consistently in that 8 out of 10 range, the editors were a lot more split over Namco's shooter. With scores ranging from 6.5 all the way up to a 9, there was a big disagreement, leading to an average score of 7.75 out of 10. Steve sums it up this way: what can you say about a game like Time Crisis? It offers nothing fancy, but does produce some good thrills with its single-minded theme of shooting an army of bad guys that don't seem to mind fighting while their compatriots fall like flies. The game forces you to reload in an attempt to add technique while a clock moves things along. Although the scores aren't that far apart, EGM clearly preferred Virtua Cop 2 over the original Time Crisis, giving Sega an early lead in this matchup. You saw similar high scores over at Computer and Video Games, who pretty much matched EGM's score, giving Virtua Cop 2 a 4 out of 5. Tom gushed over the series, calling the first Virtua Cop one of his favorite games of all time. As a high score challenge, it's one of the most addictive and nerve-wracking games you can play. People who reckon it's a done-it-once, seen-it-all game haven't got a clue. As a conversion, it isn't as spot-on as the first game, and I don't think the levels are structured in quite such a perfectly graded way as the original. The first game was faultless. This isn't such an all-time classic. That said, he did wrap things up by saying that it's a brilliant conversion with brilliant graphics, brilliant gameplay, and brilliant extras. Now, when we last left Tom, he was telling everybody that would listen that the only light gun game better than Virtua Cop 2 was Virtua Cop 1. Well, now he's back, and he immediately addresses the elephant in the room. Time Crisis even beat my longtime favorite game Virtua Cop in the arcades, and the PlayStation conversion near enough matches it. The System 22 graphics have been superbly reproduced, and the razor-sharp gameplay remains undiminished. Plus, Namco have finally given the PlayStation the official light gun it deserves. The small shot area makes the game hard to begin with. I wish the gun had kickback. And the UK version is slightly slower, but these factors cannot stop the game from being a high five. Yeah, that's right, CVG gave Time Crisis a perfect 5 out of 5, besting Virtua Cop 2's still impressive 4 out of 5. That ties things up again, 1 for Sega and 1 for Namco. While we're still in the UK, we might as well just head down the street and check in with Edge, who also liked the two games. This time around, let's start with Time Crisis, which was reviewed in their 48th issue. Giving the shooter an 8 out of 10, they concluded that essentially, Time Crisis is a video game symphony of destruction. building crescendos of violence onto each action-packed scenario. Each time you think you've seen the most breathtaking set piece, another tops it for sheer gun-toting thrills. Despite its simplicity and lack of depth, the game is at least equal to AM2's efforts. A definitive arcade experience. Alright, that last bit may have given away the big surprise. As it turns out, it didn't really matter which game I started with, because this round is a tie. That's right, Edge gave Virtua Cop 2 the very same 8 out of 10. Taken out of its arcade context, Virtua Cop 2 may disappoint those looking for a long-term challenge, or at least one that doesn't involve playing from the start again and again. Depth isn't defined by how many secrets a level hides. It's defined by the intrinsic nature of the gameplay. This isn't a deep game, merely fast-paced fun. Enjoy it while it lasts. With both games earning the exact same score, neither Sega nor Namco were able to take the lead this round. Adding a point to both games, we're currently locked at 2-2. Let's see if Edge's sister magazine, Next Generation, can break this tie. I'll say this about today's episode, no matter if it's Virtua Cop 2 or Time Crisis, the scores are surprisingly consistent. That's definitely true when it comes to Next Generation, who gave Sega's light gun game an impressive 4 out of 5, which is basically the same score we saw from Edge. Not an enormous jump beyond the original, Virtua Cop 2 faithfully upholds the polygon-based light gun shooter standards set by Virtua Cop, while upping the ante in a few key areas. Probably the most important improvement over the original is the impressive increase in the number of characters on screen and the added intensity of the scenes, like the car chase. Whether chasing down an armored car while picking off bad guys hanging out of the windows, or dodging bullets in a speeding subway train, this game is just short of being described as a roller coaster ride by some hack movie critic in the Midwest, and even closer to being described as an edge-of-your-seat thriller by this reviewer on the West Coast. Now, when you read the subsequent review for Time Crisis, you're gonna think that Next Generation preferred Virtua Cop 2, but they didn't. They gave Namco's light gun game the same 4 out of 5 score. That said, they complained that the graphics aren't arcade perfect and the lack of co-op multiplayer. Also, there are no hostages or other good guys to avoid shooting, shaving off any pretense of strategy, and the barely interactive backgrounds could have been better. Along with the complete lack of weapon power-ups, these small shortcomings knock this title down a notch. However, when compared to other light gun shooters for home systems, Time Crisis is as good as it gets. Just like Edge, Next Generation gives us another tie. Yeah, not helpful, guys. But don't worry, we still have a lot of magazines to get to in the second half of the show, and I guarantee that one of them is going to break the 3-3 stalemate. See for yourself right after these messages.
Before I pass sentence, let me say that I have never seen such heinous crimes committed so flippantly. Who would use this deadly accurate weapon to blow away sweet little ducks, then actually enjoy shooting 20 of God's creatures in 10 seconds? It's sick!
You were just saying that because you only hit 12.
Mad Crazy Point Blank joins Time Crisis in the PlayStation gallery of shooting games. So funny, it's criminal.
PlayStation.
Leave it to the eccentric critics over at GameFan to finally break this tie. Like every other magazine that we've looked at today, GameFan liked both Time Crisis and Virtua Cop 2. That said, they definitely had a favorite, even if the two scores are surprisingly close together. Giving Time Crisis a strong 92%, they gushed that once again, Namco has delivered an incredible arcade conversion, with accurate graphics, perfect gameplay, and the amazing special mode. It's like getting Time Crisis 2 thrown in for free! The gun con is as accurate as Namco claims, making for precision gameplay, while the duck feature adds a new dimension to the genre. You know, 92% is a great score for a light gun game. Do you really think that Virtua Cop 2 can top it? Well, of course it can, coming in with an even more impressive 95%. Sheer brilliance! By far the best 3D scene on the Saturn. All the arcade gameplay faithfully transferred onto the small screen, and that really cool gun to play with. A truly first-rate piece of software, and the best gun game available. Buy it now, love it for weeks. And just like that, Sega is once again in the lead. But don't celebrate just yet, because we have 3 magazines left to go, and it's anybody's game. Now, if you were hoping that GamePro would tie things up for Time Crisis, or maybe allow Virtua Cop 2 to take an even bigger lead, well, then prepare to be disappointed, because here we have yet another tie. When it comes to Virtua Cop 2, they gave it a 4.5 out of 5, and argued that for light gun fans, Virtua Cop 2 is a solid buy. Otherwise, its short-lived but frenzied fun make for a top Saturn rental. Just a few issues later, GamePro ended up giving Time Crisis the exact same score. The game moves at such a fast and frantic pace that you'll soon forget how long you've been playing, although the pain in your shoulder will remind you. But like all gun games, once you've barreled through and memorized the levels, you're done. Yeah, this wasn't exactly the help that Namco was looking for, but it does go to show that there were a lot of magazines that saw Virtua Cop 2 and Time Crisis as equals. And even when a magazine preferred one over the other, the margins were super slim. With a score of 5-4, this really is Sega's episode to lose. And that brings us to the lightning round, where we very quickly go over the reviews that are written in other languages. In the case of Megafun, the language is German, and they did not have a problem choosing a winner between these two games. They went with Time Crisis, giving it a score of 81%, up 6 points from the 75% they gave Virtua Cop 2. And just like that, Namco once again ties things up with only 1 magazine left to go. Folks, we have a real game on our hands here. I can't believe that it's all going to come down to the single most generically titled magazine of all time, video games. Once again, this is another German magazine. They applauded Sega's Virtua Cop 2 conversion, giving it a 79%. However, the foot pedal wins the day because they gave Time Crisis an even better 82%. Once again, only a few points separated these two games, making this the closest magazine matchup that we've ever seen. Man, coming from behind, Time Crisis takes it at the last second. Of course, this was all thanks to the German critics, who universally preferred Namco's shooter over Sega's. But like I said, this was a close race, with Time Crisis winning by only a single magazine. Incredible! Now, I'm sure there are people in the audience that are still scratching their head wondering why I went with Virtua Cop 2 over the first game, which if you'll recall, Tom from CVG greatly preferred. Well, actually, I originally set out to make this episode about the first Virtua Cop game, but as you can tell by this chart, it was an absolute blowout. Not even close. I mean, just look at it. Time Crisis takes it by a score of 7-3. Hyper was the only magazine to actually prefer Virtua Cop, and the 2 other points came from ties. So with Virtua Cop 2 coming out only a few months before Time Crisis and it leading to a much more competitive matchup, I made the decision to go with the episode that you just watched. And hey, now you know how both Virtua Cop games stacked up against Time Crisis. Win-win!
Unit 7, do not attempt to enter premises. Wait for backup. Do you copy Unit 7? 7?
Hey, thanks for watching me break down this classic matchup. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we have a whole playlist with other feuds. I'm talking about Aladdin on the Genesis and Super NES, Mario Kart 64 versus Diddy Kong Racing, Ridge Racer versus Daytona USA, and even Sonic the Hedgehog versus Super Mario World. You may think you know what the outcome is going to be for those matchups, but I guarantee there's some real shockers in there. Now, here's the question I have for you. Which is better, Virtua Cop 2 or Time Crisis? Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we're going to be back next week with a brand new Review Crew episode, as well as more reviews. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,